Outside the Box Reviews, we're back! Looking at another NECA Ultimate Terminator 2 figure, this time the T-1000. This was obviously one that people wanted. NECA gave us the T-800 Arnold. They gave us the brand new Sarah Connor. But the T-1000 was definitely one that felt like it needed a good update. And I'm very, very happy that NECA decided to make one. Not just like with some of the other figures, there are limitations. It is somewhat scene specific, mostly to the beginning of the film. Once he kind of gets the motorcycle cop gear, this kind of becomes no longer an Ultimate figure, but maybe we'll get those down the line. But let's just go ahead and take a closer look and check this guy out. The T-1000 really only comes with one accessory, and that is his handgun, his pistol. Nicely detailed, not really any paint shading on it whatsoever, but the sculpted detail is pretty nice there. He does have the holster there on his waist, and you can just slide the gun right in there, and it stores nicely. The only problem is this little tab that looks like it should come over and close and hold the gun in place. Never really works. They've had this in the previous versions as well, and I've just never been able to get it to actually snap in place and stay. When it comes to the sculpting on this figure, there's nothing really new. I think all of these head sculpts we've gotten before, and really the entire body sculpt we've kind of already seen. But we do get several different heads. We get the kind of stoic T-1000 version here, which is pretty nicely painted except for what looks to be poop smeared across the side of his face. That's kind of annoying. But the hair is overall pretty cleanly painted. There's some good shading in there to bring out the detail. The eyes are nice and clean. The mouth looks good on here. So overall, not a bad head sculpt. We could trade that out for the somewhat chopped in half head, which similar sculpt on the actual normal part, but then you can see the big metallic silver middle to it, and where it's all chopped down the center. Now you might see this isn't sitting very well on the neck. It's because for some reason this head is just really hard to peg in place. It's like there's excess plastic inside the port on mine, so I'm just have a really hard time getting it on there. I probably have to heat it up and put it on to kind of get it in place. But overall, not a bad head either. One we've gotten previously. The only real downside is there is kind of a heavy seam there going along the jawline, but they kind of hide it as well as they possibly could, I think, with its location. And then last but not least, we do get the Doughnut Head version of the T-1000, which I believe is actually from the end of the movie. I think this is something that he actually had the motorcycle cop gear on for, or at least the pants, down at the steel mill. But I like this sculpt. It has the big blooped out head where he gets shot with the grenade. See bits of silver coming out through it. The side of the head's nice and bulged out, looking really cool. And overall, it's a nice sculpt. However, on this head, I'm getting some paint scuffage. I don't know if it's from the neck of the collar here or what it's from, but there is some kind of paint rubbing off on the neck itself in kind of a bluish color that matches the uniform, so I'm guessing that's what's happening. Speaking of the blue uniform, well, that's new. The previous version of these figures, of all the T-1000s, had him in a black uniform. This one is a very dark navy blue. Now, to me, it's hard to tell in the film which color it really is. I'm guessing the reason for the updated color is probably because it's more accurate, but I'm not 100% sure. The detail here is as good as it's always been. Nice stitching, nice seams, nice wrinkles here. He has the name tag, he has the badge, the pen. The pockets are nicely detailed with the silver buttons on it. The black buttons going on the front of the shirt. A little white undershirt peeking out there. It's really nicely detailed. Going around the back continues really good sculpted detail there. But just like our Terminator Genesis T-1000, you can actually pop the front of this body off, and it takes the head with it when you pop it out. And because I don't think I did a very good job showing it off with Genesis, I'll show you here. There are 4 pegs in the front of the torso, and there are 4 peg holes inside the body here. So then you just take your second torso and pop it right in there nice and secure. Pop a head back on there just for the sake of having a head. And we can see we now get the torso with the bullet wounds in it. We have 3 little shots here where it's kind of exploded out from shotgun blasts to the torso. Because of the color change between the bodies, we can't really sub it out with the one from Terminator Genesis, but it is cool that they at least have this one version of him all shot up. The arms are nicely detailed. They continue on the sculpted lines, looking like the pleats and creases in the shirt. It gets tighter there around the wrist with a little button detailed out. Comes with several different hands. Start off here, we have, same for each side pretty much, these kind of flat, relaxed hands, which work well for his running pose. Then we could pop off the right hand, and we can replace it with the trigger finger. So with that hand, he actually holds his gun decently. It's kind of aimed at an awkward angle, but he holds it pretty well. And then you could trade out both hands with these long, extended metal spike finger hands. These spikes themselves are kind of softer rubber, so I'm not too worried about breaking them or anything. There's a nice fade in the paint job going between the flesh tone and the silver, and they're both basically fist hands with that one finger extended, and really kind of recreates that call to John scene towards the climax, which once again isn't really this costume, but whatever. You also see from above, the right finger is a little bit shorter than the left one, which I think is actually movie accurate. I think the right is in front of Sarah Connor's face and the left is actually going through her shoulder. And then we can remove these arms at the elbow. It's a little tight, but they will pop off. There's a peg that basically pops right in there. And then we could pop on the hook arms. These are pretty cool. I think you could put them on either side depending on which way you want them to face, or honestly you could just kind of rotate them around and have them facing opposite directions. So if you wanted them more like when he was opening up the elevator at the mental asylum, you can kind of flip them around and have them like this, where he's kind of using them like crowbars. The only downside is you really can't reach them out in a way where they look convincing when they're coming straight up, because I always think of him when he's running after the car, after Pescadero, having the hooks facing down, but unfortunately that's not really an option to keep the elbow bending correctly with that feature intact. So you either kind of have to have them pointed in or pointed outwards. But overall, still really nice pieces. You can see there's a good fade here as well between the clothing and the squared off middle hooks. I think it looks pretty cool. Down here at the waist, we got his police belt, which is decently detailed. We have the silver buckle there with all the holes, some little containers throughout, his walkie-talkie, which isn't removable, his handcuff little case, and we already talked about the holster. Some more unique content for this version. From the waist down, we do get a new lower torso, new lower body on this figure. He now has the diaperized butt, so it's a soft rubber piece. You can see the pockets sculpted in, and the fly sculpted in front. The legs are nicely detailed as well, with more wrinkles in them. Coming down to his shoes, and unlike the previous version, these shoes are just normal. There's no little bloop of metallic goo coming off the bottom of them. They're just standard police shoes. And while I believe the original ones were black, these are two different shades of brown, which is pretty nice. They look good. And the big deal with this figure is, of course, improved articulation. So we have a ball joint at the base of the neck, so you can look decently up, a little bit down, rotate side to side, and pivot. Pin socket shoulders, so they'll go forward, back, as well as out to the side. He's a single jointed elbow that bends about 90 degrees and will also rotate at the elbow. Ball joint at the wrist, so you can move up, down, side to side a little bit, as well as rotate. We have a cut joint at the waist. I kind of wish they would have put a ball joint in there to give him a little more range of motion. But with the gimmick they incorporated here into his chest, it's understandable why he doesn't have that. The legs are pin socket joints, so they'll go forward, back, as well as out to the side, not at all hindered because of the diaper there. Also swivel at the upper leg. Single jointed knee, which only bends about 45 degrees. Will also rotate, and then a ball joint at the foot. Doesn't have a great range of motion. It's really hindered by these pants here. Kind of gets in the way, but you can rotate them side to side. You can pivot them a little bit, move them a little bit up and down. I wish there was more of a range of motion there, but that's all we get. And for a size comparison, here's our Ultimate T-1000 next to the Ultimate T-800 from Terminator 2, the Ultimate Sarah Connor, and my, as of now, unfinished custom John Connor figure, who I think is actually a little bit on the short side. I think this is John Connor at maybe about age 9 instead of, what is he, like 13 in the movie? Might have to find a different body and try that again. But I think he stands in pretty good scale with the official figures here. He's a little bit shorter than Arnold. He's a little bit taller than Linda Hamilton. I think that all works out. And then here he is with the Genesis T-1000 there on the right side of the screen, and you can see very, very similar, probably from the waist down, exactly the same figure. Actually, I think the sleeves are even the same too. Not really a whole lot of difference between these two figures, a lot of reused parts, but you know what? I have no complaints. They look different enough to match their movie-specific versions, and I'm fine with that. And then on the left, we do have one of the older T-1000 figures, the Comic-Con exclusive, chromed-out version of the T-1000. That wasn't really Comic-Con exclusive because I bought it at Toys R Us. And you can see it looks like there might be a little bit of height difference, a little bit of lost height going with the more articulated body, but nothing major. And overall, I really like this new T-1000. Just like the T-800, I wish it was a little more ultimate, but when I do think of the T-1000, it's this version. I normally don't think of the motorcycle cop version of him, so I'm plenty happy with what we've gotten here. I think the accessories were pretty good choices. They covered most of the major ones that went with the T-1000. And honestly, like so many other NECA releases, it just leaves me wanting more in the best possible way. I really do hope they do a steel mill version of the T-1000. Even though he has some of those specific accessories here, I think they could find cool ways to kind of recreate that version of the figure. I also would really love to see a T-1000 Sarah Connor. Hot Toys did one years back where they basically had Sarah Connor looking like this, but with the feet kind of melting away into the steel grates of the floor, like you see in the special edition. And I would honestly be very happy to have that figure. Be a great way for NECA to sell us another Sarah Connor. But this figure does get a very solid recommend, especially if you didn't pick up any of those T-1000s in the past, and there's really no downside to getting this one instead, especially because I've actually had some breakage issues with those old ones. The elbows felt a little fragile. I actually had them snap while trying to swap out arms and things. This figure feels more solid, and I'm hoping that stays true as I continue to mess with it, but fingers crossed this will be a much better replacement to those old ones. And as of now, I know NECA does have some more plans moving ahead with more Ultimate Terminators. They recently announced the Ultimate T1 Terminator from the Tech Noir version. So that comes with everything we got before, plus some extra stuff like the tools he uses to work on his own beat up arm. So that could be pretty cool. Of course, getting improved leg articulation with that one too. I think this is the 25th anniversary of Terminator 2 this year. And I think they said that at San Diego Comic-Con we'll be seeing more cool T2 stuff. I think that might actually end up being some quarter scale things, but I'm hoping for some more Ultimate as well. Make sure you check me out on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. Also follow me on Facebook, link below. And until next time, this has been our Outside the Box Reviews, and I'll be back.